Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. And Happy New Year to everyone in 2023. This episode is going to be Mission Haven, Part 1. Before we get started, just want to mention Patreon. If you'd like to support the work of Astral Club, you can do so. You will get your advanced videos on Sunday without commercials. And of course, there's a place there on Patreon where we can talk back and forth and I can answer questions. You can share your experiences and we can exchange information. Next up, private lessons. If you'd like a private lesson to either learn to astral project or perhaps improve your projection abilities, be more than glad to work with you. You will find a link to Patreon and an email to contact me for more information on private lessons in the description. It's been a couple of weeks, and I've had a great holiday with my family and my daughter. And I'd like to kind of remind everybody how we got here real quick. I was sent to the planet of the Greys, as I call it, because they stopped communicating as a member of the Galactic Council. So I went there on a fact-finding mission and found myself in the middle of a coup, or perhaps my Grey friends would call it a restoration of order rather than a coup. At any rate, I went along as a monitor and was there for the rather short yet slightly bloody governmental change. And the three counselors who had been put into that position because the other three had died during the war had evidently betrayed their oath and were trying to pull the Greys out of the Galactic Council and to reassert their position in the galaxy, whatever that means. When that was over, Ken became one of the counselors, who's my friend there, and they have restored their connection to the Galactic Council. I thought everything was fine and went about my business. I went and checked out the world that during my Astral Guide School challenge, I had to try to start some life on this lifeless planet, and I got lucky, and some life started. Naturally, it was just tiny organic chemicals coming together, but with the help of some of that planet's electricity and some other things, I was able to get it started. Anyway, I wanted to see what happened, so I progressed myself a few billion years into the future, and I found that there are these little, what I call leaf paddlers, multicellular macroorganisms that evidently could bind together in a larger organism to kind of get where they're going. And they're part plant, part animal, I believe, and I think they use some form of photosynthesis to gain energy, although they might also get some energy from the organic chemicals that tend to be belching out still in the sea of this planet. I was going to spend some time there studying them when I was violently yanked away and found myself standing in front of the council that then began to question my actions on the gray planet. Well, I had previously said to them that I didn't need any supervision and that if I was going to be sent there, that it would be my show. And when they started questioning me, I resigned. Evidently, though, I called their bluff because there was a request from the Greys for me to be the representative to their planet from the council. And so my resignation was not at all favorable. And the council actually humbled themselves in pleading with me to remain and to continue to represent them with the gray planet, which I agreed. I was ready to leave when they hit me with another bomb, which was they wanted me to go to the planet that I discovered called Haven, Now, as far as I know, no one else knows where it is. I'm the only one with the ident. And they're a very successful society. Intelligent plants is probably the best way to describe them. They're extremely sophisticated. They have evolved to the point where they can transcend into the fourth dimension at will, or they can revert to the top of the third dimension to accomplish various tasks using a physical body. The society tends to be, as far as I'm concerned, well run, highly evolved, and nonviolent. So I was, and they also helped me out on several occasions to heal me and also pull me out of a sticky situation when the master launched his little surprise attack. And so they saved my bacon that time. So I'm very well disposed to the Havenites, to say the least. At any rate, the council wanted me to invite them to become a member. And I agreed. And they said, well, when would you be going? And I said, well, I guess I'll go now. But when I disappeared, I changed my mind part way and decided to think some more. And whenever I want to think, one of the places I like to go to is the icy, rocky rings of Saturn. And so I appeared on one of the icy rocks that circle the planet Saturn. There's always these lovely waves of radiation that comes off of Saturn and is around some of the moons too. And it feels, I guess the best way I can describe it is if you've ever been in a sauna and there are these waves of churning water hit you one after another, warming you, and it just relaxes you and you feel nicely energized. That's what it's like. So it gives me time to think. I also like to fly along the coast of Antarctica too. That's another place. It's quiet. There's no human thoughts polluting the atmosphere. And it's a very peaceful place. But around Saturn, I had a chance to think. And I was thinking to myself, where are my loyalties here? I know I'm not going to do a sales job on the Havenites because I'm not sure myself whether they should join the Federation. They've been doing a pretty darn good job themselves, and I don't know that they need the Galactic Council or that they need to belong to it. But I had agreed to at least propose it to them, but I was torn. And, the last thing I wanted to do was to disturb their society. So my next thought was maybe I could talk with my guardian angel. Many times he can help me really get to the bottom of something and look at it much more clearly. So I zoomed in on his ident, and after a moment of unconsciousness, I found myself back in that conference room that I often meet him in. And he was there, but he wasn't in a suit. He was dressed casually. And I'm not sure what to make of that, but it was interesting nonetheless. And I asked him, I told him why I was there, and I think he already knew why I was there. And I shared with him my concerns that the last thing I wanted to be was the serpent in the Garden of Eden. I didn't want to ruin their paradise. When my guardian angel, though, he made the point that even in that story, what Adam and Eve did was essentially partake of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And he said, if you had a choice to be back there in this, mythological story, would you have chosen to remain ignorant, or would you have wanted to have the knowledge of good and evil and to understand fully what the world is about? And I had to admit that if given the choice, I myself would not have wanted to remain ignorant in paradise. I'd rather be, given an education about the universe and take my chances rather than remain as some sort of a pet that is indulged with all of the luxuries while kept in a plush cage. So, after listening to that argument, he also said, it's going to be their decision. You're not. I know you're not going to try to sell them. All you have to do to honor your commitment is just to present what you see as the good and bad points of membership with the council, and to let the chips fall where they may. Because at the end of the day, it is the choice of the Havenites whether they want to remain isolated and evolve along that path, or whether they want to join a larger galactic community. And I mean, I couldn't argue with that. It wasn't really my place. No matter how good my heart was, it wasn't really my place to make that kind of decision for them. So I agreed. And he said, oh, and before you go just directly to Haven, why don't you just check out some other places first, just to kind of clear your head and just kind of get yourself focused. And I looked at him and I said, yeah, that's probably a good idea. So when I left there, I blanked out and I found myself zoning in on the Antarctic ident, where I like to cruise along the coast of Antarctica and just enjoy that whole experience. And then I projected myself to the universe's largest black hole, which of course is the current prison of the Master. And I appeared there, just outside of the event horizon, and just looking at that enormous maw, this enormous obsidian emptiness surrounded by these swirling plasma and also, of course, the captive spirits of one of my friends and also the Master. After that, I concentrated on going back to Dinosaur Earth, which I had visited many years before. And I popped up and flew around the jungles of Dinosaur Earth for a bit. And then from there, I projected myself to Haven. When I arrived in Haven, I arrived at the usual place, which is on a beach near this beautiful azure waters, ocean. The greens were every bit as varied and deeply beautiful as they were the last time I was there. And sending forth my calls, I soon had several of the Havenites come and greet me. And the way they greet you is they extend their many, I guess, branches. Let's call them branches. They're more like limbs than branches, but I have to try to go with words that make sense in English. And when they touch my astral body, they also raise their vibratory level to the fourth dimension. So it's a very deep welcome. And I felt their emotions are very different from ours. It's hard for me to interpret them in a way that makes sense to us. Their emotions seem to me to be flatter, to be not as diverse as the ones that we humans, and I suspect many other animals here on Earth, experience. But I also suspect that the reason I consider them flat is I'm not getting the gradation of their emotions. I'm not quite understanding it, and that's a little it's a little frustrating. But the main point was they were obviously glad to see me, and before I knew it, I was mobbed by a large variety of the Havenites, just showering me with welcome, and it's a very profound experience, unlike anything that I've ever experienced on Earth. Um, it's without any judgment whatsoever. It's just a complete and total acceptance and a complete unselfish attitude. And they welcomed me as if I was one of them. And I believe me, I understood, despite the fact that it was a subtle emotion compared to the way we welcome people here. We hug them and give them big kisses and all the rest of that kind of stuff. Theirs is much more subtle, but it's almost like they were welcoming back a part of themselves that had temporarily been separated, but now, of course, it was back. And so I didn't feel like I normally feel in these types of instances, like an outsider trying to fit in. I felt like a part of their society, and I can't help but be deeply moved when I'm exposed to, emotion of that sort, especially when it's so, let me call it, highly distilled and just pure in such a way that I don't know if I've ever quite experienced it that way here on Earth. I told them that I had a very important message to pass along, and that the people, if I can use that term, the residents, perhaps a better term, of Haven needed to consider whether it was something they should do or they should decline. And I certainly piqued their interest, and I let them know that I was here from the Galactic Confederation, from the Council itself, and that I was to extend an invitation to the residents of Haven to become a part of this Galactic Federation. Uh, it definitely, I could sense that that message was spread out so fast that the minute my words came out of my mind, that it went through some sort of a network that was far more complex than my human brain can understand. But I had the distinct feeling that no sooner had I extended the invitation than the entire planet had either received my words or was about to receive my words through some unknown method, which I was to find out later a little bit more about. And so I was told that we would go to the place of meeting, which they thought to me was kind of a nexus point in their planet. And apparently there's a number of nexuses around their planet, which I was to find out, that formed ways to mass communicate in an eye blink, probably faster than we can with our technology. And that by going there, they would be able to commune with all the Havenites throughout the entire planet, and that my proposal could be discussed. I'll talk about what happens in part 2 on Saturday. Once again, if you liked this podcast, please hit the like button, share it with those of like minds. Subscribe if you haven't already, and 80% of you have subscribed, so I can't complain. But if you haven't, hit that button. Make sure the bell's on so that you always get notified when the Wednesday afternoon and Saturday morning videos are posted. And I'm very much interested in any questions or comments you have about this whole subject. And as always, this is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.